Hey, Joey. Hey, Joey. Are you on? Hey, guys. So we'll get started in a couple minutes. We're running a little bit over here. I think the modeling team or the modeling session was running a little bit more. People are just starting to join. Give everyone about 2 minutes. Okay, so let's just get started. First of all, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
All right, thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get started. So this is the ORAN uh, network architecture meeting for February 14th. Happy Valentine's Day, all. What we have on the agenda is some uh, approval of previous minutes, a request to cancel the February 21st meeting or find a person that wants to host it. And then we got some outstanding user stories around the cluster and the cloud registration that we are trying to get into scoping review. So we want to review those and see if they're ready to go over for scoping. Then we also have an introduction of a deploy of an XApp, a brand new use case. They split the real-time RIC and the XApp. So get a look at that and see if there's anything we have to do with that, if it needs to be sent over for scoping or whatever that needs to be. And then the other outstanding item is to make sure that we don't have any, see if we have any action items from the two recent scoping elements. Um, is there any other agenda items that people want to discuss? Okay, I don't hear any. So the first order of business is to review and approve the February 7th minutes. Again, we bring them out there. Is there anything that people want to change or have a comment on? All right, I don't see anything. So I'm going to just note this is approved. All right. So next week is the ORAN face-to-face meeting, and I know several of us in here are in there. So the question to the group is, do you want to hold this meeting? And if so, who wants to host it? So is there anyone that I'm going to ask the question in the positive. Is there anyone that wants to hold this meeting? Okay, I don't see any hands raised or I don't see any chat. So I'm going to assume that we can cancel this for the 21st. Is there any objection to that? Okay, I see no objection, so we're going to cancel this for the 21st. All right. All right. So now we'll get into, hey, real quick, I saw that Seishu's on. Seishu, there was an action item. Do we know when the OSC 01 OAM is going to be available? Seishu?
Sorry, I miss the question. Can you repeat again? Tim?
Yeah,
Sorry.
so there's an action item to check to see if the OSC 01 OAM is available for configuration management. Do you know what date that would be?
I have checked with them. They said they have fault matches done. Configuration management, especially, I have to check it again. Yeah, this is still open actually. Fault
Oh,
match
still
is there.
open.
Configuration,
Okay.
yeah, it's still open.
Okay.
Still open,
And I'll note that so we don't ask that question again to you.
yeah, sure.
Fault management is available though.
Yes, through 3GPP APIs, what is available
All
there.
right, and we'll keep this open until you give us an idea.
Sure. I'll confirm you that. Yes.
All right. Okay. So so the next item is actually the create, delete, and OCloud registration. By the way, just to let the group know, feeding back from the RX scoping meeting, the reconfigure ORAN NF was agreed for inclusion into the bag of use cases to be considered for releases, release 3 and onward. So that was included. So now we've got 3 of the now 7 use cases that have gone through the RX scoping that are available for that scoping team to decide what should be in release 3. Okay. Okay. So create cluster, delete cluster, OCloud registration. They're yours, Bala. Do you want to take them from here?
Yeah, I'm definitely ready to discuss the first story.
Okay. You want to
Yeah.
start sharing it?
Yeah. Oh, you wanted, okay. Can
Yeah.
I send you the link and would you be able to share? Is that okay?
Yeah, I can do that. I had the link.
Okay, you have the link. Okay, I'll
Yeah.
send you both 2 links actually.
Oh,
Both the links I shared, I think in our chat. I think I'll share it here.
okay. I'm waiting for your second link.
Yeah. Yeah, just putting this in the chat. Is it the same? Are they both the same? Are they different? Just want to make sure I send you.
I got a different link. So one of them has just
Okay, got
this.
it. Okay. So okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. First of all, I think the both the links are complementary. I think I think they should be merged, is what I believe. So one talks more about the 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 genesis of this, why we are doing this, and how we are trying to make Nephew lead in this way. For example, write a cluster template. There is a proposal, but obviously it has no details yet. So that's what the link that I said, the Alexis wrote, it says about that. So it talks about yeah, the other one, yeah, talks about the genesis of that and the workflow, how the SMO makes a call and what the workload does and what the exception path, etc. And then the second story is more concrete in terms of definition, and it has some component diagrams, etc. So as a first step, probably I can take that step if it is okay. Why I feel we should merge these 2 contents so that we don't lose it.
Yeah. So specifically, what do you intend on merging from this one into that one? Because this is the one that's in the doc. So Go ahead.
Yeah, especially if you scroll down, the table that that Alex has put together. If you scroll down on the, yeah, this table, it's very nice actually. It's basically, it talks about the steps, request response and everything.
But okay, I have a raised hand on that.
Yep, go ahead, Anil.
So I think we discussed in the past and we intentionally took a decision to remove it because as Nephew is a declarative approach versus the table, what we are showing now is more imperative, right? So what are the different steps? And this is more of a recipe, right? So SMO will not come up with a requirement to, or with a request to provision a cluster with such a long list of details. It may not even have the exposure to all these details. So many of it is OCloud internal and being picked up by itself. And especially when we are bringing up the concept of cluster templates, SMO will just have the high-level capabilities and capacities that will be exposed. At least that's what we are discussing in ORAN, right? So
Alok, did you already discuss that with Alexis? I sorry, I didn't know if you did already.
yeah, I think we had discussed in the past, and he was agreeing that we can remove the table.
Okay, if he has already agreed that,
And
I will not do that. Okay.
yeah, so I think the version which has like the component diagrams and kind of a comparatively more comprehensive, I think that is the latest and the agreed version. So we had put this even in the archive, or I don't know.
Yeah, this one was
The
the current one.
Yes,
And-
that
and
one
this was archived.
archive. Yeah,
Yeah.
that one was the archive. Sorry, I didn't know the genesis of this. You already discussed with Alexis on this one. I was not sure. So, but it has some useful flow. That's what I thought. So second
I
thing
mean,
is,
we have the references, right, from the ORAN orchestration use case in the previous
All right,
user
so
story itself,
hang
right? So we
on
can
a lot.
refer that.
I'll lock just a second. So the question is, do we need to put a flow? I think what is being asked is that, do we need to put a flow in this use case? The currently active one. Because I think what Bala is asking for is a flow.
I personally say like we can keep it as a reference, and that has been captured in the reference section, not as part of the.
Where is it captured? I'm sorry.
If you go down right here, references. So
I think that's what we decided for the NFO, basically NF instantiation to not to replicate content from the specification, just to reference it. So if you want to be consistent.
Right.
so can we also put the reference to that doc that we saw, or is not needed, Alok, according to you?
This doc here is an archival of it, that these requirements, these steps, like, should not have, like, I would assume that you're not going to pass networking and compute memory requirements, right? It's just going to be a set of capabilities, capacities that you want to provide, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, Al.
Yep, that's right.
So there's certain things in here that are just blatantly
So
incorrect.
it's more imperative, Bala, the table, right? So versus what Nephew we are driving as declarative approach.
Okay, got it. Okay, thank you.
Because there's got to be, this is more a makeup of the recipe, not of the request.
Exactly.
Okay, so thanks for clarifying that. So I saw them and then I wasn't sure. So so that is that. And the second thing is on the create cluster story. What is the output of, if you go back to the one that is the main story?
This
I mean,
one
I
here.
discussed with Sheshu, and Sheshu helped me understand quite a bit. Not the original one.
The original one?
Yeah.
Oh, the archived one or not? Sorry.
Yeah, the one that Alok
Perhaps
was.
we don't require to look into the archive one, right? Archive one was discussed before, and sorry, I'm having
Okay.
my dinner. So.
All right, good.
So we
I'm,
can look into-
I'm getting rid of it. I'm not going to go back to it again.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
But we can
on
only
this-
concentrate on the one which is actually in the main folder.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So I asked a question, for example, in this particular story, I don't know whether it's answered. If you go back, the FUCOM adapter, what would be the out? See, I'll tell you where the.
Okay.
First of all,
Where do you want me to go? Just where do you want me to go?
Okay, let me first tell you. Okay, let me ask the question first, and then I'll tell you what the nephew
Okay.
is. Go. I think in this document I had asked a question. For the FUCOM, there is a nephew adapter in the component, right? So what is the output of that adapter? I had asked a very specific question. Is it something like, for example, today, for the cluster or infrastructure orchestration, for CAPI, there is a package. For GCP, there is a package. So both the packages are supported by as a northbound interface for their individual packages. There is no abstract layer, but by Nephew. So obviously, in this particular study, we are talking about the CAPI specifically. So the FOCOM adapter for Nephew, is it going to generate that the CAPI package as mentioned, or something similar to what mentioned in that catalog? So if you scroll down, I had asked a specific question with a link. I think that should be there in this document. There are no questions. I think, did you, okay, yeah, scroll down. Yeah, I think, yeah, particularly, if you see this, the FUCOM adapter for Nephi, is it going to produce a package like that? Can I please click on that? Yeah. Is that the intention, Alok? Is it going to, is the adapter produce something like this?
Sorry, maybe I have missed these comments, but yeah, if we can maybe
comment.
same.
If you go back to that one, you should show the Nephew package. Yeah. So here you see you have a cluster copy kind package referred. Right, you see that but where are we now? In the catalog infra copy. Okay. That
Yes.
is the one. The cluster copy kind package is the one that was referred in the R1 example package.
Yeah.
So the idea was that like we would now then do like a corresponding cluster copy O2 IMS package. And that is then realizing a provider plugin towards like something what we should be defining as some sort of a pre-standard, or as close as possible to what we know today of the O2 IMS provisioning interface. So instead of like this cluster copy kind package with like a YAML file referring to like this Docker copy class, we would have a corresponding cluster copy to IMS package with a YAML file referring to like a copy deployment with this new provider plugin then. And then, I mean, this proposal here would be that like as a part of like the Nephew implementation here, then we should source in that new copy provider plugin that would be the O2 IMS client side.
So you're saying that in FOCOM we've got a new plugin, right? That will plug into the kind that will have very specific OCloud related information, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Did that it? So where is that documented here?
If you I mean, I think that is what is saying there. Yeah, here the recommended architecture support a new O2 IMS cluster class in copy that takes 2 mandatory input parameters. So this is like, I mean, if we do this as a reference implementation now, then we would do like a client side and a server side. So the client side would be then implemented here as a copy provider plugin. It will provide, support a request where you send in this information, the target IMS ID, the target IMS blueprint ID, and blueprint input. And then we would do a corresponding like an NVI on like an FU IMS side then. That is exposing these 3 parameters on a REST interface, and then refer them internally, like this target IMS blueprint ID would refer internally to an IMS level blueprint.
Right. Got it.
So yeah, I mean, couple of things there. That's where. So Nephew, if you see R1, the R1 when we supported free 5GC,
Yeah.
so the APIs we defined were very specific to that. And when we moved to R2, when the OAI came in, we actually abstracted that into NF topology. Right now, NF topology is a single API, irrespective of the network function of the vendor, and then they have their parameter refs, config refs, etc. That are defined to specify a particular vendor package. So similarly, in case of clusters, we had 2 separate things for cluster management, one for GCP and one for kind. That was in R1. And we did not do anything for that in R2. However, that's not what Nephew wants. Nephew is, I was discussing the same very topic with Stephen and others, Wim, etc. the other day. And Sagar was also part of the discussion. So in Nephew, we want to create an abstract, something very similar to what we did for NF topology for network functions. So we want to do the similar abstraction for infrastructure orchestration. If you see, Nephew has 3 swim lanes, right? One is the number 1 swim lane is infrastructure orchestration. So for that one, there will be something abstract interface very similar to what we did for NF topology. I think that needs to be defined. That needs to come into the picture in R3. So my thinking is probably we should define that first, and then when we do this, I think use that as an interface for this rather than CAPI. I mean, we can start with CAPI. I don't know that even if you do with CAPI, it's going to be throwaway because Nephew is coming out with that abstraction in R3.
All right. So if I understand
what I mean?
it, yeah, but hold it. That's what the infrastructure, that's what network automation has decided, that they're going to abstract out CAPI?
Yeah, right now there is no abstraction. There is, for example, if
I understand, but in release 3,
yeah,
there is no abstraction. So they don't have that option, right? So is there a work item in release 3 to abstract out CAPI?
yes, there is. That's what we were discussing yesterday in the last couple of days. Yes.
Do you have some reference slides or documentation on that abstraction or what it will be?
Yeah, not at Jay. Probably we can work collaboratively on that. If you could join the SIG automation tomorrow, probably we can discuss that there as well. But right now there is no such abstraction, but which is needed because which is awkward at this point of time. If you want to do a GCP, you do one package. If you do a CAPI, you do a different package. If you do, and internally there is some hard coding for us to do OCP as well. It is not in a great shape. So that abstraction is needed, and probably we'll start discussing that. Stephen is gonna take a lead, I believe. That's what he told. Probably we should discuss that in detail tomorrow in the commission meeting.
All right. So the question I have then, Alok, in team, is that do we have a couple artifacts here, right? We have the blueprint package and the OCloud blueprint package and the target IMS blueprint package, right? So there's certain artifacts that we have. Do we have those defined themselves of what attributes are going to go on there? I think it's only like 4 or 5, if I understand it correctly, right? A lot.
But didn't we started actually studying the user story here itself, right? I mean, it should be part of the implementation cycle, isn't it? I mean, we have the high level understanding, right, about the artifacts and which is that you are highlighting here, but what exactly that should go as an attribute for further like clarify about each individual artifacts. I think that will be part of the study itself, or the POC exercise that will be triggered with this user story.
So one other thing I would rather request this group is, since you are more exposed on the ORAN side, you know, the some of the things that you want from an ORAN perspective. So when the definition of CRD is happening on the Nefio side, I would request you to participate and influence some of those artifacts so that, you know, it is more in alignment, whatever the CRDs that Nefio team is going to define.
My thinking was that, like before, okay, perhaps it's a good thinking with an abstraction, but before you have that, we could be more actually concrete in this case on actually realizing what O2IMS really would need. And as I look at this is like a bit of a work in progress. So this would be a bit of a proof of concept or a case in order to prove, okay, this is what we would like to need to convey over the O2IMS interface. Then once you have that, that would be one of those specialization cases that you later would like to abstract. But at this point in time, perhaps the most important is to really define this one, right? What would we like to convey over the O2IMS interface, and how can we do that? And I think there, a copy provided plugin implementation should be good enough to understand that part. I mean, realizing a client side, talking with O2IMS, and on the other side, realizing like a server side that can receive this request.
And then what you're suggesting, Anders, if I got that, is that then we can take in a future release, once network automation has made that abstraction, we can adjust to the abstracted interface. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, I'm thinking, we start with a bit of a concrete thing. We're using what we have now, then we copy, and then we abstract it once we know how it will look like.
From the Nefio angle, yeah, definitely please come to the meeting tomorrow on the SIG automation meeting.
SIG automation is right after this meeting, by the way.
Oh yeah, right after this. Yes, not tomorrow. Yeah, I'm just getting my days wrong. Yeah, sorry. Sorry for keeping me honest there. Yeah, I think probably we should discuss it there if the time permits, today or next time. So that's why I was trying to little bit double click on that FOCOM adapter. So the way Nefio has always functioned so far is it says it wanted to be intent based and declarative. So if the FOCOM adapter is the output of that Nefio adapter for FOCOM, is the output is some kind of a package? Is that the right understanding? It will be a package. It will not be series of REST calls, isn't it?
You mean the output in terms of the request being sent from the FOCOM adapter?
Yeah, FOCOM Nefio adapter. What would be the output of that? What that adapter does?
Yeah, so that, as I said, because you have southbound there, you have the O2IMS API. So the request will be basically a REST call containing these three parameters we have, or not the first one. That is sufficient just in order to identify the endpoint, the correct IMS to send it in. So it will be a REST call referring to a target IMS blueprint ID and providing some template or blueprint specific input data.
So yeah, I think there are a few hands have been raised. Joey and I have also been waiting to come in.
Okay, so let's just take the hands. I'm sorry, I thought Joey was. All right, so Joey down. Robbie, your hand is raised.
Okay, so if I remember that discussion on the adapter, there was like, so we had this northbound adapter. We said, okay, this is to kind of adapt these MOS APIs into those specific CRs that Nefio will understand. Then the southbound, the adapter was also about kind of making it a little bit more adapted to specific implementation. So we may not have a complete O2IMS specification ready, but if you want to do something a vendor oriented way, I think it was also to kind of make that kind of possibility a reality kind of thing, to make that realization possible. So if you're going with completely O2IMS vendor neutral way, I think it will be the O2IMS kind of, in the sense like a pre-standard version of that implementation.
Which is a RESTful, which is a RESTful query call. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. And I think that's what was said here. So
Yeah.
Alok?
Yeah, so yeah, I agree. I mean, this potentially would be a REST call with the parameters, but again, how it will be packaged and how exactly it will look like, I think it's a bit too early to say that, right? That's the intention of this user story, to talk and understand how it has to be represented, and then I think we have to wait a little bit.
You don't have the service operation identified yet. That's okay. That's part of the design. Okay. Seishu?
Yeah, the understanding we had was that it was like GBNFM versus SPNFM. That's for long run. Okay, where I mean, I'm again referring to the standard body, which is there for MedC, right? That is a long run thing. For the short term thing, what we were thinking about is to wrap the existing ORAN, ORAN APIs which were already there, ORAN specifications, I would say. And that is the very reason why we had the SBI. Okay, the NBA part was actually getting into Nefio. The SBI part was getting out of Nefio and getting into the ORAN specifications perspective. So that was understanding with which we closed that, is what I remember. I hear close to that. Again, I know there are multiple implementations of it. We have to think of multi-cloud scenarios, right? Not just single thing. But the southbound was actually, to be more precisely, from the integration of ORAN spec. That's what is my understanding.
That's correct. That's why it's still RESTful, right? That's why you want to retain the RESTful information. You can create artifacts that you need, right? That you're going to reference.
True. Right. That's why we are talking about adaptation, right? The reason why we were using the word adaptation is because we were adapting to ORAN specifications, which were, because anything entering into SMO, we don't have a spec there. But coming out of SMO, we have a spec there. So that is the reason we are seeing SPA adaptation is coming into this.
Okay, so Bala, let me go back. So go ahead and let's go back to you. Seishu, did that finish your comment? Sorry, I just want to make sure.
No, I am closing my.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry, I may be asking too many questions, Tim. So once the REST call is made, it's the blueprint ID is referred in the REST call. And then on the Nefio side, could you help me, Joy or Alok, what's the series of action happens next once the REST call is made?
So this REST call then, that is like realizing or being received then on the IMS side, that would be a front end then, like fulfilling this O2IMS interface and the server side of that O2IMS interface. And then under the hood there, you would have, the IMS Nefio implementation. So there you would need to map this down to like deployment and referring to this target IMS blueprint ID as a blueprint package, and then cloning that one into now then an instance specific cluster package, and updating it with the input data that was coming over the REST call, and then committing that then on the IMS side, so that you are then triggering the creation of the cluster on the IMS side. So that was the thinking. So this API should be something, as I said, very thin then, a very thin API level. You're just exposing like as a REST call and taking in the reference to the blueprint ID that is like the IMS side Nefio blueprint package and the input data. And yeah, of course, then a reference to a target. You need to have like a target site and such data also. But that detail, I didn't mention that part here. But
I think that we can
discussion how you are identifying that one and how you are using the O2IMS inventory API in order to locate the proper site location also.
So thank you so much, Joey. So basically, that really is helpful, this particular thing that you said. So essentially, the REST call just terminates, and after that, Nefio will do its native things. It
Yes,
can look
exactly.
at
That's exactly how we are doing in R1 and R2, right? Because that's something which is internal to the O cloud and has not to be standardized, right? So you can have your own implementation, how we have done so far in the R1, let's say, right? In R2, like you said, we haven't done any changes for the cloud infrastructure parts. But as Stefan was mentioning, we will have the corresponding O cloud blueprints, which will be referred by the API calls, and that will basically have the low-level details close to the realization, and you have the site-specific information parameterization happening for individual sites.
So and then basically at which point of time it will look at the blueprint ID, look at the upstream repo, clone that particular blueprint, and then it will do whatever it is doing today. That's the working assumption, right?
Yes.
Okay. I think probably we should add those details. That would really be helpful, I think, to this story.
Well, let's ask a question first. Are
Yeah.
those details that you talked about in this already, Alok?
I'm not sure if my understanding is not there, but with that said, I'm not the best mind here. So Alok.
Well, that's why I was asking Alok.
Yeah, so in component architecture, I think we are capturing what we are explaining here, right, Stefan?
Yeah, we tried, but perhaps we can take another look at it and we can clarify that, like the interface type part, because here the focus was mainly on how those the blueprint packages would look like then on the SMO side and IMS side. We have nothing there in more detail on like the REST call is basically just this bullet list, but yeah, we can take a look at that and update that and provide a suggestion then on.
Yes, I would suggest it will really be helpful, just like the way we discussed. Like I know as a part it's captured. If, for example, the two IDs that we talked about, the blueprint ID and other things, other ID, it is mentioned here, and there is a mention of a call being made to IMS that is there. But if we can be a little bit more concrete, just like the way we discussed, for example, this O2 IMS, the FOCOM Nefio adapter is going to make a REST call to the Nefio management cluster implementing the IMS with these two IDs and other necessary information. And then on the management cluster, we implementing Go Cloud, it's going to look at the upstream repo, it's going to clone it, it's going to do the specialization. If we can add like 2-3 steps, I think it will be very clear for everyone.
All right. So what I documented is, can you provide additional information and be concrete about the call flow? Which component does what for the interaction, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. That's cool. I think now
Okay.
we are settled on that. The only other thing is now the interface that Nefio wants to do, the abstract interface, something in the lines of enough topology. I think that should be influenced by this group, in my view. In whichever way, I think it can be done there first, or like Joey said, it can be done here, and then that can be taken as a reference.
But I think we talk about that with the RX scope, with the network automation. We can go to the next meeting, right, and talk about it. But
yeah,
when we talk about this, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to mention that this group should influence that decision. That's all I wanted to say. Yeah.
I'll ask you there, Bala. This you say this abstraction that you compare with the topology adapter.
Yeah.
This topology adapter, that one is kind of a bit of like a more of a northbound adapter. It's aggregating a number of network function blueprints.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So this net or the new abstraction, is that also you see something as a northbound adapter? Is that one rather than on the IMS Nefio side or northbound, or where would you see that one?
So from a Nefio angle, it's going to be Nefio's northbound interface, Joy. So basically, just like enough topology, if you see, I mean, right now, you can say the network functions can come from FreeFiGC or OAI, or it could be RAN or core. So they're all distinguished by the parameter refs and the config refs. So similarly, one of the main swim lanes for Nephew is infrastructure automation, where it wants to automate and manage clusters across clouds or data centers. So it wants to provide that abstraction, like somebody wants to create a cluster in, regular vanilla KTS or something with AWS or GCP or GKE. So it wants to provide that single abstraction layer on top. That's the goal.
Alok, your hand is raised. Or Ravi? I'm sorry, Ravi first.
Yeah, okay. Just one question. Like when we're talking about REST APIs, I mean, everything is basically REST APIs, whether you pass on, you're doing Kubernetes to APIs. I'm just trying to understand is we are still talking about a CR that actually expresses an intent to create a CAS instance with certain requirements, right? Because it is not like you're calling kind of REST API as a service that is exposed by IMS. It is we are assuming that okay, there is a Nephew management cluster that understands that is already instantiated with a certain say CR, and then you're passing the CRD to create a particular resource that will be realized through the regular Nephew enablers and so on, right?
I think so.
Okay. No, because I
Yes.
was just confused when you're saying REST API, I'm confused. We're still talking about the regular intent way of doing things, because we are though we say we identify reference this as a blueprint that the IMS understands, but the blueprint itself is understood by the service orchestration or the SMO saying that this is a cache because I want to deploy this network function, so this is a specific cache for it. So now instantiate it for me, so that then the other network function, their instantiation can take over from after that, right? I'm assuming there's all this are kind of having certain dependency, and you're doing it the Nephew way.
Right, but we should still remember that it is we have two Nephew management clusters here, right? We have one on the SMO side and you have one on the IMS side. And what we say when we say this REST API is the O2 IMS interface, that should just refer to the blueprint on the IMS side. And that blueprint on the IMS side, that is where you have your CR manifest files and the relevant CRDs for that IMS specific internals in the like the blueprint.
Yeah, but it's
Yeah.
But it,
No,
but
question
it is
was
not. Hang on, Robbie. So,
Yeah.
but it is that call between FOCOM and IMS, right? Over O2 IMS, is that call a Kubernetes API call with
No.
reference to the CR? No, it's a
Oh.
RESTful call that says, here's the blueprint ID, right?
Yes.
Okay, I think that's what Robbie was getting at. Robbie, did that?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I thought this is going to be the yeah, I was thinking it's API. That's what my understanding has been, that it's not an IMS, it's not an IMS, it's not directly kind of consumed by IMS. It's API interface.
It's you just passing an identifier, right? And maybe some other parameters. That's all you're doing.
Yes, yeah.
And then the IMS that's in the workload, the management cluster takes all this adapts.
Yeah, there's a controller that tries to reconcile and all that stuff.
So,
but I don't know. That is my understanding. Yeah, go ahead.
Ravi, I think if I understand correctly, since I'm probably the guy who understands the least here, probably. So let me summarize what I understand. So FOCOM, the Nephew adapter will make a REST call with two IDs to the Nephew management cluster running a IMS RESTful service. So that will be a REST call. So the REST call will contain two IDs, two or maybe more IDs. And once that cloud management cluster receiving that REST call, which is on the server side, so it will know, okay, this is my blueprint ID. Then it will go to the upstream repo, clone whatever it's needed, and then it's gonna call what it's always done. It will do this. It will go through the specialization pipeline, and then it will realize the cluster creation like it is doing today.
In my sorry, yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
but I was thinking that because for it to do all that, it should be sitting at some cluster level, right? It is part of the control plane, not part of the workload itself. I thought the IMS itself would be realized as some kind of part of the Kubernetes a controller or nephew, part of the nephew operator
I think
sitting in.
IMS server is a purely RESTful service.
Yeah, you're going to have to put that facade in, Robbie.
Yeah. Let me also,
But I think something that just sort of reinforces, Alok and Stefan, that we need to have a sequence diagram that shows this with the corresponding responsible entities, including the Kubernetes, API controller, right?
That sounds. I agree. I should include it. I mean, include the rest server side, and then how that is unpackaged behind in the IMS nephew management cluster. And I wonder about like if this abstraction that you're talking about, like there, you would like to have an abstraction to essentially then support like different IMS providers in the same way. If that is actually the realization of this server-side O2IMS API on the IMS side, then.
Yeah, that would be fine too. Yeah, that would be fine too. That's why I said probably this group we should definitely influence the decision.
Right.
Yeah, and so Joey, I mean, just before I go too far, did my summary make sense? Just
I think that's Stefan. I think
Stefan.
Sharing the same room here, me and Joey today. I'm here.
I'm sorry. I'm just going by the Zoom name.
Yeah. I'm hiding.
You're hiding there. Okay. So did the summary I said make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense, and we can clarify it on our side, and then I wonder.
And then the one last thing is how the status is communicated back to SMO. Once the cluster creation is done,
right.
So basically that's basically the IMS server side. Should it keep polling internally and then communicate back to SMO?
Yeah, and that there was a question we had. We talked about a bit with some of our colleagues working in the ORAN standardization. You have there the O2IMS inventor API, where you already there you can query for the status and the details of they call node clusters that is realizing the clusters for the DMS, and that was the idea that basically when you do the polling then further on, then this IMS REST API service, it should expose that O2IMS inventor API then, so that we can query there for the status of the resulting node cluster that has been created.
Okay, so I was under the impression that the inventory API is only for the clusters that is already existing and discovered and already being managed. So is that API also applicable for the?
Yeah, it's for anything new, any new resources that come in, right? So what you're doing is creating new resources.
Yes, basically, here we are creating a new cluster, right? That's not in the system. Yes. So how do we?
Exactly. It should show up there then in the O2IMS inventor API as a new node cluster.
The IMS.
What if the cluster creation fails? Even then it shows?
No, it won't show. It won't show. So the question is and I noted it as a comment, right? You guys have to. We're going to have to show a succeed and failure of the response of the status creation, right?
Yeah, the happy path. I'm very good. I'm like you said, Stephen. Happy path. It's going to be part of inventory and it shows. But my thing is exception path, where we need to figure out how we communicate the status back to the SMO.
I see your point. Yeah,
I think take realization point of view. I think there are multiple ways, right? Whether we poll the inventory itself, the OCloud inventory, or it's the IMS, right? In ORAN, currently, the imperative channel is like IMS will respond back the URI, right? The DMS endpoint. But in the declarative world, we can do, like, we can have the URI created, and then the FOCOM level plugin has to poll that URI status, right? If it is in a ready state with a certain value, or if it is in some sort of an exception or a failure scenario, right? But like I said, it could be multiple different ways, right? Either we can go through the inventory channel, but then with the inventory, the exception handling would be a bit of a tricky part, right? Because you have to update two places.
Yeah, I need to check. We should check with our
let's check internally as well.
Because I see the point you Babala, about this. Like, okay, what if you have some exemptions? You could immediately communicate them then on the O2IMS provisioning side, because that is basically where you receive like the request for a new cluster. Then. So, I need to follow up on that.
Hey guys, so
Thanks.
we've only got about so it looks like we've still got a little bit of work to do on this. Is that accurate? I assume that it's not. We don't want to take it to scoping yet. Is that accurate? If someone believes that that we should, let me know. Raise your hand or something. Vishwa?
Oh yeah, my point was, can I still speak about the previous point that was discussed?
Sure, go ahead. Just give me a minute because I was trying to get to one quick other thing today. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm looking at OpenShift installer right today. I know we're discussing about status. So today we are able to actually go the installer service. We can go query through REST API calls. We'll be able to see the cluster creation progress. Is that what you guys are trying to think? Because at some point of time, when you make a call via Nefio and it kicks off, you might want to go to the actual installer provider to be able to go and get that kind of information about cluster creation status.
I agree.
Right. That is what so it's more like you get the API endpoint where you can actually go SMO, or anybody else can go query, right? Because it's going to be a long-term process. Then I look at bare metals, right? For example.
Yeah. Something like when you, I think you bring a good point, Vish. Probably when the, I don't know how the API itself is specified. I think when the provisioning API comes to IMS server, one way to do is this: when the request comes to the IMS, OCloud IMS, then OCloud IMS can immediately send back an ID back to SMO saying, this is your ID, this is your reference ID, and use it for your status. And then from that point onwards, SMO could use that ID to look for the status, at which point of time it is responsibility on the IMS on the OCloud side to make sure internally whatever is happening, it looks at that, it polls that, and maintains that status against that ID.
Correct. And it can be different based on the different providers, like, OpenShift being different and G-Cloud being different.
Those things are internal details for the cloud, but from the IMS interface perspective, it will only just provide the ID and REST endpoint. And then SMO can go to the REST endpoint with that ID, then it can always get the latest status.
Yeah, right. Okay, guys. So again, I don't know if we have enough consensus to take this to ARC scoping it without the sequence flows. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah. And you refer to like the meeting afterwards here, the automation.
Yeah, there's a network automation meeting in 5 minutes. Yeah.
Can we bring this up in a next coming? If I do these updates first, and then we take it to that network automation meeting, is that preferable, perhaps?
Yeah, sure, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's okay if we do that, right? But we're gonna have to request the women PAL to have some time to talk about this, right?
Yeah, and but if you can do yourself some input related to this, you can send it to Joey. This abstraction you talked about.
Sorry, Stephen, would you repeat that, please?
If you have some reference, some link or presentation related to this abstraction you talked about?
Okay. That answer is very easy. There's nothing exists yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then I can, then I follow. Fine.
Cool. Thank you so much. Yeah.
All right. So
I definitely want this group to influence that, though. Thank you.
Okay. So the other question I have is on this deploy XApp without an SMO. Naaman, are you still on?
Yeah.
So
Hi, Tim.
so the question I have is that is there anything on this use case that needs to go to RX scoping?
So it's more or less similar to deploying RIC. It's just that it's specific to XApp configuration, like RMR configuration, and like basically the network connection between XApp and other components of RIC.
All right,
So
so
it's
is there,
yeah,
so is
yeah,
there
it's more or
anything-
less like RIC. Yeah.
Okay. My question is that do we need to go to RX scoping for it to be put into the bag? Well, we're gonna have to do that to get it put in the bag of
Yeah.
use cases. Okay, so we'll just review it when we get down to it. Okay.
Yeah.
I was just trying to figure out if we could shortcut it, but I don't think we could shortcut it. So okay.
No,
But
no,
we'll
no,
get
yeah.
to it this week. All right, guys. So this is it. We're not going to have a meeting on the 21st. Again, if we think there's a meeting that you need to have one, go onto Slack and let me know, and we'll get if we think we need a meeting for next Wednesday, and we'll schedule it that way. Try to find someone to host it, but most of the ORAN team probably will be in the ORAN face-to-face.
Tim, just one thing. So basically, what I meant is like we can go ahead for the Friday's meeting with the XApp user story. I think it's more or less similar to deploying near RT-RIC.
All right, so you
yeah.
want, and I just want to make sure everyone's okay with this because we haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
Does anyone want to see this user story before we send it over to RX scoping? What he's saying is that he just had to separate the one that was already through RX scoping, and you just pulled out the XApp and created the user story run. Does anyone object to just sending this to RX scoping? All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send to RX scoping, and I'll make the announcement, right?
Yeah.
And we'll get it onto the list over there, right? But I do want to make sure that it gets into the RX scoping through that process. All right.
Yeah, sure.
And I'll note that we need to document some stuff on this. I'll finish the notes on this piece of it. It's tough to present and document notes at the same time. So, all right, and I'll finish that. Again, anything on the 21st, if you guys find that that's necessary, then let me know, and we'll try to get that someone to host that meeting. Okay. All right. Anything else for today? All right. Thanks, guys, and I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tim and Alok and Stephen. Sorry for that confusion in the beginning. I didn't know
it was
that
useful.
you already discussed.
No, I think that was good.
This
Yeah,
was
very
useful. Thanks, guys.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.